Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, as the crop starts to come off or gets close to coming off, we start thinking about soil testing already. And one of the most important things on a soil test we will cover today, it's soil pH.
Well, when that crop is coming off, we're also thinking about what are we going to do going into next year in terms of both fertility and tillage. We're going to cover both of those things today and how some farmers are addressing that issue around the country.
Our Weed of the Week can certainly be a challenge. We'll show you how to get it under control. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
Quite often on Ag PhD, we talk about how to raise better crops, but today we wanted to focus just a little bit on how farmers are going to store those crops. So if you're a non-farmer, you can kind of understand what we're talking about here is putting that crop into the bin and being able to hold it in the bin for 6 or 9 months. And if you are a farmer, we want to talk through exactly what you need to do specifically going into this fall.
Well, in the summer, there's a lot of really hot days and you aren't really thinking about the fall, but on a day like today where it's a little bit cooler, I even put on a long sleeve shirt today, I'm already thinking about fall. Wow, fall's just around the corner. When you start getting mornings in our area in the 40s or low 50s, it starts to feel a little bit like harvest. Now, when we're thinking about getting those grain bins ready, the first step seems pretty obvious, but really for some people, they say, oh, I don't know if I have to do that. You have to get all the grain out. You can't have any of last year's grain in the bin or you're just asking for trouble. You're going to have a big time difference in moisture, in temperature. There could be some insects in that older grain, all those things. It's just a good idea to start fresh. So get the old grain cleaned out. That would be step number one.
And it's not just to get that old grain out of the bin. We want to get every bit of the old grain out of the bin, so everything has to get swept down very good.
And it would be nice to have it out of there for a period of time too. If you just clean it out the day before, there could be some bugs still floating around in the bin, crawling up the side of the bin, whatever, and then you just put new grain right in and you're right back to the same old problems. So what we'd like you to do, get that grain out. Then we'd like you to, once that bin is perfectly clean, spray the bin down with an insecticide. Now there are a number of different insecticides from malathion to Tempo that could be used in the bin depending on how soon you're going to be putting grain in there. We like to use the ones that are pretty safe for humans. There are definitely some more harmful products out there, more dangerous products out there, but there are some good safe ones that you can use without taking a lot of risk yourself.
Like the malathion or Tempo. Okay, so you skipped a step though, Darren. What we want to do before you spray that insecticide, we got to make sure everything else with the bin is great. So you want to stand inside your bin and just look around a little bit. If you're seeing light somewhere, get it fixed, get it sealed up. This is your opportunity. Run the auger a little bit. See if you've got repairs that need to be done. Check the ladders. Get every last thing done with that bin so it's all in good shape. On our farm, we're typically sealing up the outside, right where the bin connects to the cement. All these things we want to have done. The very last step before harvest is putting that insecticide in.
Well, and the other step with the insecticide is also spraying outside the bin. We'd like to spray a buffer. Maybe it's 10 feet around the outside of the bin just to make sure if there are any insects out there that could get in and start attacking your grain, we've got them under control and wiped out. The other thing that goes along with that is just mowing things down. If you've got tall grass or weeds outside your bin, it's a good idea to mow them down short, then do your spraying around there. That way you control things. And also if there are no bugs around and there's no tall vegetation around, your chances of keeping rodents away are much better too.
So there are a lot of things when it comes to this grain bin preparation, but the main thing is just making sure you take a little bit of time while you have time, because every year it seems like we get in a rush on the farm, we got this to do and that to do, and bam, all of a sudden harvest hits. If you don't have those grain bins cleaned out by that point, chances are it's going to get thrown in the back burner, you're not going to get everything done that you should, and then you're going to have problems with that grain over the next few months, whether that's mold, diseases, insects, or something else. We just don't want you to have any issues.
No, we don't want any issues in your field either, especially with weeds like our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
What's new for 2013? Challenge 2050. Challenge 2050 is a two-component system consisting of a nutrient and a biological additive. This groundbreaking fertilizer contains mycorrhizal fungi, which provide an extended transport system that allows water and nutrients to be delivered directly into the root. Challenge 2050 can increase yield and efficiency of your standard fertilizer program. Challenge 2050 is the future of fertilizer. Call TJ Technologies or your fertilizer dealer and get Challenge 2050 today.
At Titan Machinery and Case IH, we offer better solutions for all your production needs. It's more than our job, it's who we are. We are parts. We are service. We are training. And most importantly, we are here for you. In any season, for every reason, we've got you covered. Case IH and Titan Machinery, better solutions.
If you want to take your farm to the next level, you have to go where the in-field research is being done. Hi, I'm Darren Hefty with Ag PhD TV. One of the field tours that Brian and I have enjoyed the most each summer is the North Central Research Station tour in Michigan. There are over 500 acres of replicated trials in corn, soybeans, wheat, and numerous other crops. You'll learn more about crop fertility in a few hours than most farmers will in a decade. Visit agroliquid.com for all the details, and maybe we'll see you there.
Upgrade your trailer to electric with the Rolltech electric system from AgriCover. Strong, flexible pivot arms and motor mount rotate and telescope, allowing the roll tube to rise and flex over heaped loads. The positive automatic lock is impossible to back off to control the flow of grain. This integrated system uses one wireless remote to operate up to 10 tarps and hoppers, keeping your driver out of the dust, rain, and harm's way. See the Rolltech system in action at an AgriCover dealer near you.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
One of the most important things you can do on your farm is soil test, but it's not just to pull soil samples, it's to determine, well, after I've got the results, what do I do with them now? We're going to explain this over the next few weeks here on Ag PhD. We'll start today with the most important thing on that soil test, soil pH.
Well, first of all, you may be saying, well, wait a second. Now, soil pH varies throughout my field, and I'm going to pretty much have to grid sample to have a great feel for where those areas are in my field that are high pH or low pH, because I probably have some of each in my field. And I say you absolutely do, and you can certainly do that yourself. Like for me, I don't have my smartphone on me today, Brian. Wow, I must have left it in the truck. But normally I just grab my smartphone and take a look at that out in the field and use Soil Test Pro from farmlogic.com, and we can actually take grid samples right in our field. It tells you how to label those samples so you can send them into the lab, and you can actually get a prescription back if you're going to do some variable rate fertility. Now you may say, well, I'm not going to do variable rate NP and K on my farm. That's fine, but if you have soil pH differences out there, there may be some areas you need to lime, there may be some areas you need to handle with other types of soil amendments, and soil pH is one of those things that you absolutely have to variable rate across your farm.
Those are good comments, Darren, but you know the thing I picked up from your comments was you called to pick up a truck, and on the farm, we don't do that. You know what a truck is? A truck's a semi, or it's a straight truck, or a tandem axle. That's a truck. So,
oh boy, yeah, this is what you get working with your brother every day, and I'm just waiting for him to tell me what my smartphone is really called too.
But Darren ends up talking to too many non-farmers, and non-farmers all the time will refer to their pickup as a truck. It's not. It's a pickup. You want to see a truck, come to the farm.
Brian's all worried about this stuff. I'm just worried about getting good soil samples off my farm and understanding where those pH changes are. Like,
and you may have to drive your pickup out to the field to get some of those soil tests.
Oh, this is going to be a long show, isn't it? I don't know. Okay, so anyway, let's just take, for example, a field that Brian picked up a few years back. He had pHs as low as 5.1 up on the hills, and in the valleys he had a pH down in the 8.1 range. And it's all in the same field, and it was just a few grid points over in his farm. And you think about that, if you're going to manage the whole farm the same, you can't. You can't even come close, because at that low pH, you're going to have certain nutrients that are tied up and held in the soil, made unavailable for your crop. And you're going to have very poor production on crops like alfalfa, for example. It doesn't respond to low pHs at all. At a 5 pH, there's hardly any yield potential left. And at that 7 pH in between there, it'd be perfect. And then you get into that 8 pH and you start having problems again. So you have to control, or you have to treat those areas much differently.
Yep, now to simplify this for you, what we're talking about here, 6.8 is about the ideal pH. We want to be within about a half a point of that either way. So 6.3 to 7.3, that's kind of the range we'd like to be in. But ideally, most crops like a 6.8. So if you have low pH soil, it's not that tough to fix. You just put calcium carbonate out there or lime your soil, and you will raise the pH almost immediately. With your soil test, you can get recommendations from the soil lab, and they will tell you how many pounds or how many tons of lime do you need to raise your pH up to a good level. Pretty simple to do.
Well, it's something that doesn't happen overnight either. You put the lime out there, it's not like tomorrow your pH is going to be completely different.
No, but by next season, it's going to be somewhat different.
Correct. That's why we like to do these things in the fall if we can. Now we get some moisture, whether it's through snow that's going to melt or we get some late fall rains. This all helps get that lime into the soil. And when we're putting that lime in there, it's important to think about whether you're going to be in conventional till, strip till like we talked about, or no-till. If you're doing conventional till, you're going to be able to change that pH that much faster. If you're in a strict no-till program, it's going to take a little bit longer for that lime to work.
More than a little bit, yeah.
Well, it depends on rainfall. If you're in an area that has good rainfall, like you were talking about 100 inches of rain in Brazil and no-till, hey, no problem. It's going to work pretty quickly.
It depends a lot on soil type though. So if you have a really heavy soil, it's very hard to get that calcium carbonate down 6 inches, 12 inches deep in the soil, however you need to change that pH.
This is an important thing too. When we're looking at soil pH, it's important in a few spots out in the field at least to measure what that pH is down in the top 6 inches, then the next 6 inches down, and so forth. We do 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and 18 to 24 inch cores just in a few areas to see if we need to change that pH very far down. For the most part on our farm, we just need to influence that top 6 inches. That's where our pH has gotten low on us, and when we get a little deeper in our soil, it's more of a neutral pH.
Okay, let's talk real quick about high pH soil. A lot of people will tell you you can't fix it. You absolutely can. You can use elemental sulfur that will immediately change your pH. It will lower the pH.
But it's a short-term impact. It's not a long-term,
but nevertheless,
impact.
you could use some elemental sulfur every year if you wanted to fix it long-term. Though chances are you're going to have to improve the drainage out there. Usually what we find is poor drainage leads to higher salt levels and higher pH levels over time.
Or it leads to erosion problems. And that's something that we've got on some of our ground that we've picked up recently too, where we've had some heavy erosion over the years where water, again, wasn't managed properly. And now we've got pHs that are extremely high.
Yep, so manage that water properly, and over time your soil pH will start to come down. So once again, soil pH is the most important thing on the soil test. You've got to look at that first. It's more important than even NP or K. If your soil pH is out of whack, you've already given up maybe 20%, 30%, 40% of your yield before the year ever even starts. There's no point in that. Address that pH first.
Well, and if your pH is low, again, you can just throw some lime in your truck, Brian, and get it out to your field, and maybe that'll even stop our Weed of the Week. We'll talk about it coming up after this.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's a head above the rest.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, AgroCulture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, AgroCulture Liquid Fertilizers.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Honey Wagon? Can the sweet talk. Out here we treat manure, and when we talk treats, we don't mean cupcakes. Treating manure with More Than Manure Nutrient Manager can reduce solids in your pit or lagoon and ammonia levels in confinement buildings. PU, try N and P. MTM is the first and only nutrient manager proven to reduce nitrogen loss and phosphorus lockup. That's fertilizer loaded with yield potential. Looking for proof? Check the bin. Isn't that sweet? Results you can't ignore. A pit you finally can.
Darren and I have had a lot of questions over the last few years about strip tillage because that's something we've done on our farm. Now granted, we've not done it on every acre. We like doing long-term studies here to see how conventional till is versus strip till, for example. So there are a few things we've learned over the years and a few reasons why you might consider doing strip till on your farm, but also a few drawbacks too.
You know, I always have fun traveling around the country and I talk to farmers about, well, what's your tillage method? Now a lot of guys will say, well, you're doing this strip tillage on your farm. That will never work in my part of the country, or that will never work on my soil. And I always caution farmers to not use the words never or always. There's nothing that always works and nothing that never works in farming. It just seems like you have to look at the pros and cons and then look at your situation and see if this is something that would benefit you.
Well, I'll give you an example. So Darren and I have been down to Brazil before, and we go down there and we find some farmers who are no-tilling and they have 100 inches of rainfall per year. And I talk to farmers who get 20 inches of rainfall and say, we have too much rain to ever no-till. No, you don't. Any tillage system you want to do, you can probably do it if you manage it well. It's just that each tillage system has its pluses and minuses. It has its different management steps you're going to have to take if you want to be successful in that system. Strip till is exactly like that. The biggest drawback I see to strip till is just that it takes time in the fall. So you literally have to have a dedicated person and a dedicated tractor to get this done. You have to be committed to, hey, I am going to get my strip tillage done in the fall.
We get a lot of questions about, do I need to do it in the fall? Could I do it in the spring? We've certainly found much more benefit doing it in the fall. We're putting out fertilizer then in the fall. We're building the berm for where our seed is going to be planted in the spring. All this works great in the fall for us because typically our soils are fairly dry. In the spring, once that frost comes out and we start getting some spring rains, it's really tough for that soil to be fit for us to be able to do this. And generally by the time that soil is fit for us to be doing strip till, we could already be planting corn, and now we're just setting ourselves back. If we have to spend a couple of weeks doing strip till in the spring, now our planting of corn is going to be much later and it gets to be a big challenge. So doing it in the fall is a nice thing. We can deal with the residue at that point. We can get our tillage done in those strips at that point and get the fertilizer placed where we need it for the spring.
But what we prefer to do is use shanks for strip till, not coulters. The reason why is we want to get our fertilizer down deep in the ground. We want it 8 or 10 inches deep in the ground. And I would challenge you, test your soil on your farm. Let's say if you test every 2 or 3 inches going down, I would be willing to bet you've got most of your fertility in the top 2 to 4 inches of soil. There's not very much when you get down to 8 to 10 inches. Why load up those top few inches and risk losing that to erosion? Why not get that fertility down a little bit deeper at 8 or 10 inches deep so it's down there when you have a dry year? It's down there to help lead the roots down. It's much safer. It's much more protected when it's down a little bit deeper in the ground. That's why we want to run with a shank. Well, you can't do that in the spring very often, especially in the upper Midwest. Coulters, yes, you could do it in the spring, but we don't like coulters because we've got all that fertility then in the top couple 3 inches of soil. That's not what we're about. We've already got a lot of fertility there. Let's get the fertilizer down deeper in the ground where we actually need it.
One of the other challenges we hear from farmers that are just starting to use strip tillage is they say, how do you manage the residue, especially when you're in continuous corn? When we do continuous corn on our farm, what we've found most beneficial for us is using a chopping corn head. Now we've sized that residue down often to chunks that are 4 inches long. And when you get small pieces of residue like that, they're pretty easy to move around, they're pretty easy to till under, and we can end up with a pretty black strip there and enough room to shove those little 4-inch pieces off to the side in our 30-inch rows. So we really like chopping the corn up. The other thing that we like with the chopping corn head is now instead of having stalks that may be 3 foot tall, now all of those stalks are mowed down. So they're maybe in the 8 to 12 inches tall. And at that point, we don't have stalks that are falling over the row over the winter. And now I've got to try and deal with a wet, soggy 3-foot long stalk in the spring and try to cut through that. So by chopping that residue up in the fall, we're able to make a nice berm, and by spring, yes, we may need some row cleaners if there's some of that residue that blows over, but for the most part, our rows look pretty good.
What a lot of people will say is, well, you don't want to chop your residue up because then it's all going to blow to the edge of the field. We've been doing this for years and I haven't had it yet blow to the edge of the field.
And we get a little bit of wind here too.
Right, quite a bit of wind. Personally, I think strip till is the way that we stop that problem. So we've got a little bit of soil there, and we've got a little bit of soil that's gone over the top of some of this residue, helping to hold it down. I don't know exactly why we don't see really much issue with residue moving over to the edge of the field, but we sure don't. So yeah, if it was no-till, maybe it'd be a little bit different, but all I know is I'm never ever going away from this chopping corn head thing. It's awesome in conventional till, it's awesome in strip till, and personally I think it's the way to go in no-till as well.
Now, when it comes to strip till, you certainly have to evaluate the pros and cons for your farm. On our farm, the big cons were just that it was going to take more time in the fall. We'd have to have somebody dedicated to that machine, and we'd have to have a tractor that was dedicated to running it as well.
And the equipment costs a little bit of money too.
Yeah, it's not cheap to get started, but once you're in it, it's pretty nice because we're doing our fertilizer placement. It's really the only pass across the field. We're getting our prep work done, so our seed bed is already prepped, so in the spring, all we have to do is plant.
And we've eliminated our hard pan down at whatever, 6-8 inches deep, because we're going down 8 or 10 inches with a shank. So our roots are going to get down deep fast, and we've got fertilizer down there.
Yeah, putting the fertilizer down deep has been a real benefit for us, and banding that fertilizer has helped protect it, but also we're planting right over the top of that with RTK guidance. There's just a lot of pros for us. The one con though, Brian, that we didn't mention is sometimes there's some different weeds that pop up in strip till compared to in conventional till. We'll talk about it during our Weed of the Week coming up later in the show.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Your farm tells a story, one that continues with the decisions you make. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our Weed of the Week is wild mustard.
One of the cool things about wild mustard is that it has kidney-shaped cotyledons, and a lot of times as weeds are very small, they're difficult to distinguish from one to the next. But if you look at those first two leaves that come out that are actually the two halves of the seed, the cotyledon leaves, they look like kidney shapes, and that's kind of interesting with wild mustard. Now, when it gets bigger, everybody knows the flowers on wild mustard. They're four-petaled yellow flowers. We've all seen it if we've been in a hay field, an alfalfa field, wherever you're at. Wild mustard can be a big issue depending on your crop. Now in corn, for example,
we have a lot of
simple
options. We used to not have so many control options, so it was a big problem, especially in small grain. But now in small grain, we have Husky. We have the Addition products. We have Sharpen Pre-Emerge. We have Prepare Pre-Emerge. I mean, we got a whole bunch of different things that will control it now in small grains, wheat especially. So I'm not too worried about wild mustard anymore.
Well, I was thinking about corn here too. We almost never see it in our cornfields
Right.
because the Pre's do a nice job. Balanced Flex is very good. Verdict, Sure Start, Triple Flex also very good. Then Post-Emerge Status is just awesome on it. And so are the HPPD products like Callisto, Lotus, Impact, Armazon. They do a nice job.
Well, especially when you
controlling
throw a little atrazine along with it. In soybeans, I like Authority MTZ down. Authority Assist is probably a little better option, but I like Authority MTZ and save the Pursuit or Raptor for post-emerge because that's your best bet post.
And also you could use Synchrony, which is the old classic Pinnacle mix. That has worked pretty well too, post-emerge. There aren't a lot of guys using that anymore, but if you do have STS tolerant beans, that would be a good option.
And Roundup and Liberty also will do a good job on wild mustard. So got a number of different ways to control this. Fortunately, because when Darren and I were growing up, we used to have to go into small grains and pull wild mustard. Don't have to do that so much
and it's
anymore.
a spring annual, so really the tillage system isn't a big deal. If you're doing no-till or if you're doing strip till or conventional till, it can pop up in any of those situations. So with wild mustard, just start out with a pre-emerge herbicide, come back post. We've got great options in almost every crop.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrek technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
If you're planning on installing drainage tile this fall or putting in an irrigation system, what if you could get both done at the same time? In today's Iron Talk, we'll discuss subsurface irrigation through drainage tile lines. Irrigation done below the soil surface has been shown to be more efficient than when it's done above ground. In fact, farmers who have been doing it this way report that they're using up to 50% less water to attain the same yields. There are a couple of big challenges, though, to irrigating through tile lines. First of all is how to lay the tile out. Your spacings will likely need to be narrow. 15 or 20 feet may be the widest depending on soil type and water needs. The tile should be fairly shallow as well at 2.5 to 3 feet deep. This will result in quite a bit more cost than your normal pattern tile job. Secondly, you'll need shutoffs to help overcome any elevation changes throughout the field. Again, this adds a little cost, but the trade-off is greatly increased efficiency of water usage. The big benefits of subsurface drain irrigation through tile lines include low water usage, low maintenance and upkeep costs, and tremendous drainage during times of excess rain. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Whether you're planting, spraying, or harvesting, there's nothing more important in farming than getting it right from the start. At Case IH, we got our engines right the first time. With our SCR technology that maximizes horsepower while meeting tough emission standards. While other companies are switching technology, Case IH already has over 30,000 proven engines in the field. The world of farming is changing. Be ready with a proven leader in efficient power. Case IH.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Upgrade your trailer to electric with the Rolltech electric system from AgriCover. Strong, flexible pivot arms and motor mount rotate and telescope, allowing the roll tube to rise and flex over heaped loads. The positive automatic lock is impossible to back off to control the flow of grain. This integrated system uses one wireless remote to operate up to 10 tarps and hoppers, keeping your driver out of the dust, rain, and harm's way. See the Rolltech system in action at an AgriCover dealer near you.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Can you increase your field's topsoil layer by reducing tillage, planting high residue crops, utilizing cover crops, and adding manure to the soil? Topsoil can be rebuilt. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.